I'm here with Bob Group Managing Director Andy Higgins and one of the original e-commerce pioneers in South Africa. Thanks, Andy, very much for joining us, and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. You've seen some things. You launched Bid or Buy at the height of the .com boom. You got to weather the bust. Tell us how that went. Did things work out as planned when you first launched Bid or Buy?
Definitely not as planned, I would say. Yes, back then I was a young, naive 23-year-old, actually, just before we launched Bid or Buy. And it was a roller coaster ride, and I wouldn't change it for the world, but it certainly didn't go as planned. It was probably a time in my life probably won't get to experience again. But it was also probably the most time that I had the most accelerated learning as a person as well.
And that was quite a tumultuous economic we're going through a pretty tumultuous economic time now as well. Are there any parallels that stand out to you between then and now?
Look, I think I was probably a bit more naive, a lot more naive back then. But I remember at the previous company I was working for in the UK, I'd been there for a year. The company itself was not that much older than that, and it was about to list on the London Stock Exchange, and it was going to be valued at more than British Airways at the time. So it was just insane. Like, it was not real, not realistic. So I don't think you can compare anything to that. It definitely gave me a new respect for wealth and for money and for building value within a company.
Yeah. I actually did some work together with your co-founder Talana Simpson years ago, and we worked on a podcast project together before podcasts were cool. And so she tells a story about how you put your own laptop up for auction on Bid or Buy. Is that story true?
Yes, that's true. I put it up for auction, but I set quite a high starting price, hoping no one would buy it. Unfortunately, no one did, because otherwise we wouldn't have been able to run the business. But pretty much the challenge there, where you've always got the chicken and egg situation. You need sellers to have buyers, and you need buyers to have sellers for them to sell something. So we basically had to go around and list anything we could possibly find within our houses and so on, just to sort of kickstart the site to get it going. So that's what we had to do. But fortunately, my laptop wasn't actually sold.
Yeah, and then we're going to fast forward a little bit, but then after those tumultuous years, everything scaled down. You had to sell off your businesses overseas. Bid or Buy South Africa remained. You had to rebuild it with one employee, and you then went through a boom time between 2005 and 2009. You acquired Jump Shopping, Private Property, Jobs.co.za, the Classifieds, Payfast. What was behind that boom, and did it work out as you planned?
Boom is maybe a little bit of a stretch, because it was still, I think what helped then was ADSL was started to become more mainstream. And then the big difference for us, I have this love-hate relationship with Google, but back then, because there wasn't a whole lot of content on the web, because we were providing content, and Google was becoming being adopted and becoming more mainstream, we were getting a lot of free organic traffic coming from Google at the time, because there wasn't a lot of competition. So I think that helped us. And then there was sort of a revival amongst VCs, and what gave us, I think, a boost back then that enabled us to do and make some acquisitions was interest from overseas VCs.
But ADSL was only part of the equation, right? E-commerce is entirely dependent on the post, on some kind of parcel delivery.
Yes.
So how much has the postal service in South Africa, the South African Postal Service or Post Office, held back e-commerce? And if you were given control of the post office, how would you fix it?
So I remember back in those sort of 2005 onward, that sort of period, the most widely used form of delivery on our site was the post office. But over time, that obviously trust in the post office has eroded, and to the point now where I don't think anyone actually uses the post office to send a parcel. But whether it's held back e-commerce, I don't think we could say that, because basically the private sector has stepped in. It's created an opportunity for privately owned courier companies to fill that void, which they have, and they generally have provided a reasonably good service. I think where we're still lacking for e-commerce to truly become accessible to all South Africans is to provide a viable solution to those in the more outlying or informal areas.
And you then stepped away from Bid or Buy in 2010, and you returned to e-commerce with UAfrica. I think it was around 2012, correct me if I'm wrong. What was your initial strategy strategy with UAfrica?
I had stepped aside operationally from Biddelbai. I was still involved as a director. And I was just looking for something new to do. So I ended up buying Jump Shopping, which was actually a price comparison site, which was owned by majority owned by Biddelbai at the time, and partnered with Yakuru, who had founded that business. But unfortunately, Google has stopped showing love to that site, and it basically, within a few months, traffic dried up completely. And so we had to pivot that business. We rebranded it as UAfrica, and we partnered with Shopify in Canada to help to launch basically the services in Africa. And over time, what we realized, though, was there was a void in the logistics side of e-commerce, that there was this need to provide services to merchants to be able to deliver their products once they received an order. So that's where our strength sort of as UAfrica is providing logistics services to e-commerce merchants.
Google, I don't think they immediately launched it, but they eventually launched their own kind of
Google Shopping.
Google Shopping comparison tools, right? Yeah. Now we're seeing our own competition commission, for example. The European regulators have been very strict on this, but our own competition commission stepping in and going, hey, you can't do that. You can't kill a site that's doing a particular service and then launch that service yourself. Broadly speaking, but there's intent, and then there's with the actual outcome of the regulations. What do you make of the Competition Commission's moves on big players like Google and Amazon, regulations there, and should they be regulated?
I'm definitely not an expert in this area, and I say generally I'm pro allowing free markets and let business fight it out between themselves, sort of thing. But having said that, I think there is a place where it is possible for a dominant player to abuse their power. And I think particularly when it comes to e-commerce, it's where you perhaps sell things yourselves and you provide a marketplace for third-party sellers to do. I think there is possibility there for abuse of power in that situation. So I think it is potentially right for authorities to step in, but I think only to a point. I think my current view is probably they've overreached currently with what they're doing at the moment, or what they've set out, and they should rather let sort of free market dynamics play out on their own, would be my gut feeling.
And then UAfrica experienced a boom during COVID. Can you talk us through that boom? What did you see happen?
Everything was grounded to a halt, right? There was no logistics services were allowed at all, weren't allowed delivery at all. But very soon after that, I guess people came to their senses and realized, that the risk was very low, and that there was a need to at least have e-commerce, even though it was considered unfair because traditional retail couldn't provide services. And so as a result of that, we saw a huge spike in deliveries happening. But I think it is important to note as well, following that 60-70% growth year over year during COVID, we then reverted more to what it was pre-COVID at like 20 to 30% growth. So we didn't see a decline ourselves, but the growth petered off basically.
Then UAfrica bought Biddelbai, and you created Bob Group. What encouraged you to create Bob Group? What's your vision behind the move?
So I've always wanted to provide like this holistic e-commerce service. And I think I've always felt to do that, you need some kind of a platform to be able to sell through a marketplace. So I don't know, it's also because originally founded it, I think I have a soft spot there as well, and feel like it was in some ways unfinished business because we, in my view, it didn't reach the goals or the potentials that we originally set out. So I don't know how much of it is a bit of, I wouldn't like to say ego, but maybe there's a little bit of that in there saying we want to prove that we can actually do it. But I think more importantly, I really believe in being able to offer this holistic service throughout the whole e-commerce value chain, that being the marketplace, payments, and the logistics side of it as well. And I saw the opportunity to do that.
And then Bob Group saw a fantastic growth since you formed it as well. You've spoken a little bit about your figures during COVID. Can you give us some revenue figures, some of your latest revenue figures, for example, to just get a sense of what the growth is that you're seeing at Bob Group?
Yeah, so we have 5 different services, and they're all at different stages. So we have the marketplace, Bob Shop, Biddelbai is rebranded as Bob Shop. We've got payments, Bob Pay, which is still very early. We've got Bob Go, which is originally UAfrica, which is the courier aggregator. and one of our new services as well, Bobbox, which is our smart parcel locker service. And then we've got our courier software as a service called ShipLogic. So each of those are actually a different. I see them as 5 businesses within a larger business. So from a revenue point of view, our courier aggregator would be sort of the most established business from that point of view, and they are out of those 3 the 3 more mature businesses, 2 of them are profitable, and Bob Shop, if we had to look at it at the moment, we still would not, if we had to separate it out as a standalone business, it would not be profitable, but we did see a 25% growth year over year now in November. And if we can do that again in the next year, the business will be profitable.
Oh, wow. So sort of like Black Friday month, which is like the big month to Black Friday
exactly.
month. 25%
growth, yeah.
You've said that your ambition is to grow Bob Group into a unicorn company. Is that possible without expanding outside of South Africa?
We do have ambitions to do that, and I do believe it's possible to do it within South Africa. We are growing, I guess, to some extent more horizontally across our services as opposed to just within one service. So we do have these 5 businesses within one, and I genuinely believe it is possible for us to build a significant business within South Africa only. We have actually forayed into other African markets, and we've pulled back as well. It comes with its own challenges, definitely as well. Yeah.
And we can't talk about e-commerce in South Africa without tackling the anaconda in the room. Amazon, who's announced this year, it's the worst kept secret in the market, but they've finally announced that they are going to launch a marketplace in South Africa. What do you expect them to do when they launch here?
So personally, obviously, I don't think anyone should discount Amazon. They are a behemoth and massive resources. And I think just purely through brand recognition, they have a huge advantage. I think it's what also all merchants, they're expecting Amazon to come and perform miracles. And perhaps they do. And if they do, I think it will be wonderful for the market, by the way. South Africa, we're probably sitting around 5% e-commerce adoption of retail in this country. And you compare us to even our emerging market counterparts like, in South America, Brazil, or India, they're all well over 10%. And I still don't have an answer for why we're not there yet. We should be there. And I would hope that someone like Amazon coming in will have a positive impact on that, which would uplift e-commerce for everyone within the market. But I do think, my personal opinion is, it's going to take them longer than most people think.
Do you think Amazon will be able to compete effectively against Bob, against Takealot, and other local e-commerce players?
I think they definitely will be able to. I used to be of the opinion that e-commerce or online marketplaces, there's naturally a natural monopoly will form. I think my view is changing, where I think there is space for more than one player. And if you look at a market like Brazil, there's a number of marketplaces there that are thriving and successful. So I think it is conceivable that we could see a future where there's multiple successful players. But I think generally, ultimately, there probably will be one major winner. And yeah, it remains to be seen who that is.
Well, yeah, that was going to be my immediate follow-up to that. If you have to pick winners for over the next 5 years in South African e-commerce, then who do you think that would be?
Okay, well, I'm South African. I think I have to. I believe local will win against international. There are going to be challenges, so I don't think Takealot's going anywhere. They obviously got big backers. I think it's going to be very difficult for Amazon to come and compete at that level. And then, of course, I have to back myself. I always back myself. I think in one way or another, I do see us benefiting, being a winner in e-commerce in South Africa.
And then we haven't even discussed Walmart, who own Massmart, and which is Macro and Game, and they're fast rivals with Amazon in other markets, not just in the United States, but elsewhere in the world. Not to discount them either, right?
Absolutely, no. I think they've already made a positive impact. They've invested a lot. I think ultimately, the consumer is going to be the one who's going to benefit, because I think there is going to be quite a rivalry, and like you say, it's not just Amazon and Takealot. It's Massmart as well, through 100% now owned by Walmart. And then we also putting up our hand and saying, what about us? We're here too. We also want to throw our hat in the ring and play a role in that. And we do think there's a place for us to be there as well.
Andy, is there something that we've maybe not tackled that you think people are missing in the local e-commerce space that you think want to show to people? Watch out for this. This is going to be huge.
Yes, I would definitely say that for me would be the smart locker parcel service. We launching our own solution called Bobbox. I really think that can have a significant impact, especially in the informal areas where you're going to be able to have your parcel delivered to a locker or a pickup point rather than to a physical address delivery. And I think that like it has done in many other markets, in particular in Europe and in Asia, it has had a big impact on helping e-commerce adoption. And I believe that's going to be the same for South Africa. So Bobbox, look out for it.
Well, while we're talking about Bobbox, then what I found fascinating from a tech perspective, that this is like proper IoT stuff that you've built into there. What made you choose an IoT network, specifically narrowband IoT, over other connectivity options?
So our biggest consideration there was power. So we, obviously with load shedding problems in South Africa, we wanted to come up with a solution that is not dependent on Eskom or external power. So we started with figuring out how we're going to do a battery operated solution. So we needed a solution that is low power consumption, and then secondary to that also has coverage in the areas where we will place these lockers. And one of the main areas is can be quite deep inside a mall or even in a basement underground. And so we needed to ensure that we could have that network coverage at those points. And it seems, although we're still early in this process of developing this, that MBIoT ticked those boxes the best for us.
Thank you very much. Folks, I'm Jan Vermeulen with MyBroadband.co.za. That was Andy Higgins, the Managing Director of Bob Group. Thank you very much, Andy, and we'll see you on the internet.
Thank you very much.